Hello, good evening, and welcome to Cardiff Central. You're joined by me, Harley, and Carwyn. As ever, how are you doing, Carwyn?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Busy weekend, and now I'm pretty much off for the rest of the week, so it's quite exciting time, really.
Oh, excellent. I mean, I'm using up annual leave before my contract ends as well, so it's getting through. Just a quick reminder: we have a new Twitter handle, which if I was more prepared, I would have actually checked what the handle is. But if you look for Cardiff Central Podcast, we are there, and we are at Cardiff_Central now on X or Twitter if you want to keep annoying Elon Musk by not using the correct name. We're on the Facebook page and allegedly on Instagram as well. I've never been on Instagram, so I do not know. But so that's it. And also feel free to check out the recording of this podcast on YouTube and all the other great rap stuff there. So first of all, Carwyn, before we go in, a bit of pleasantries. How was your week? How did your weekend go?
Yeah, it was all right actually. Thursday night I was working on Neath Bridgend, which was the conditions didn't help the game. I'd say that, but a good win for Bridgend in the end. Shame for Neath that are still looking for their first win. Then moved on to Friday night. Yeah, we'll come back to that. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. Saturday then I was back on, well, which was Saturday now, Scarlets. Oh God, yeah, that's a bad one as well. And then Sunday I had the pleasure of working in one of the trucks alongside the likes of Andrew Coombs and Sean and Harry's on the game down there against Leinster, which yeah, all in all, it was a pretty bleak weekend. I think Scrum 5 put out a post saying it was the first time the regions had all lost at home on the same weekend. So yeah, as far as bleak weekends go, it wasn't the most positive, but I suppose of the regions, maybe we are the one that are most positive. Is that a fair reflection of the weekend?
I mean, it depends how you measure. I mean, Scarlets maybe because they lost by the fewest points, but yeah, I mean, when you think about how the Bulls squad and how many people are tipping them to be competitors right at the end of these stages, maybe we should be a
Mm,
bit more positive. But then you could argue the same with Glasgow
yeah.
and the Ospreys, and obviously, I mean, Dragons Leinster. I don't want to go into it, but I mean, speaking of Dragons Leinster, you were saying off air that you had a nice you got a compliment from Andrew Coombs. Do you want to elaborate that on a little bit?
Oh yeah, this is my claim to fame. But yeah, it was essentially just spotting something that happened in the game, which is Dan Sheehan's bit of genius set up Frawley's try. And if anyone wants to watch that back, watch it back because it is brilliant. The knock on from Rio Dye, he picks it up, offloads up the back door, touch and go whether it's forward or not, but escape that for the moment. He then tackles to the ground, gets up, runs all the way around the back of the attack of the Leinster attack, and gets on the 15 channel, get the ball inside from Frawley to then create a 2-on-1 and put Frawley in the corner. It is brilliant work rate. One of those where you'll turn to young kids and be like, if you want to be a top class rugby player, watch this moment, watch this from a hooker. It is brilliant. But yeah, got a little compliment from Kuzi for that, and people in the analysis booth set it up, but unfortunately, due to TMO and communications issues, we didn't get to run it at the end of the show, so that was a bit frustrating. But
Yeah.
communication seems to be a running theme at the moment with the URC. I don't know how you feel about that one.
Also, we did have a lengthy discussion of it on the wrap. Just recording just for this, and yeah, I think we're all of the same thing of when it's missing a penalty or forward pass, that it's frustrating. But we've had some where they were missing foul play. We had the issue with us not being able to get pictures on the screen at Cap in the first game. Like Kieran Parker, red cards. Joe Roberts. A very dangerous hit on Joe Roberts out in South Africa was missed, and we it's we're going to flag these issues. I'm flagging these issues up because they're teams I'm invested in, but I know in the past we've had issues in Benetton where the comms have gone down or there was no TMO. It's happened at Galway. It's happened in Galway for Connacht games. It's frustrating, especially if we're trying to band around the tagline of best league, we do need to like try and get these small bits. We don't know if it's communication issue. We did put a call out saying, look, if anyone's involved behind the scenes in that sort of thing with the ref radios or whatever, if they want to send in something to explain how it works, great, because we'd love to know. But yeah, that was a bit possibly not the most frustrating thing for a Dragons fan, that game. But I said we're not here to discuss them.
Yeah, we maybe won't get on to that. It happened. Was it in the Cardiff game or the Scarlets game as well? I was trying to remember which game it was. There was a communications breakdown at one point where the ref might have to be changed. Just one small thing, and this isn't just shifting blame. It isn't Host Broadcaster that runs that. It is a separate company. It's not BBC or S4C or RTE or anything like that. It is a separate company that runs the comms between the referees. But yeah, it's getting a little bit frustrating. I've got to be honest. And
I think the Osprey Sharks game had it as well. So there's been at least one example every round so far.
Yeah.
I said, unfortunately, I've picked out all Welsh teams in all of them. There might have been in other games. It's just that I watched the Welsh games first.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I try to watch every game in the URC, but I'm not being brought on. I don't give up Monday night to talk about those other games regularly. So I sort of focus on the Welsh ones first.
I don't watch every game. I must be honest. I do watch the Welsh games. Carry on.
It's gotten a lot harder since I've become a dad. I'll tell you that just now. Yeah. So shall we move on to Friday night? So Cardiff go down 18-12 to the Bulls. It's a really frustrating game. I think it's a game where I found so many positives but so many frustrations at the same time. Like for me, it was great that we finally saw the back line starting to click into place, and we saw, Halahola and Lilo look like they're on their best. Halahola managed to do some weird triple side step and beat 3 defenders and get away. Ray Lilo knowing the laws well enough, or at least hoping that he'd get away with it well enough to score that breakaway try, scooping the ball to the back of the ruck. I don't think I'd have complained if it was disallowed, but I'm glad it wasn't.
I was going to say we'll come back to that, but if we're starting with it, personally, I don't think that's a try. Just the understanding of those laws. The referee said that there weren't 2 Bulls playing in that ruck. In my opinion, there were, because there was 2 involved in the tackle that preceded the ruck. So in my understanding, that is 2.
The thing is, you don't count anyone who's on the floor. So I don't, because they weren't on their feet, you could say they weren't on their feet. That's still a tackle. I think for it to be a ruck, you need to have the players coming over. I think that's where he's been a bit lenient.
Yeah,
I do agree. It seems wrong. It was a bit like that Lewis Rees-Zammit, not a knock-on try in the Six Nations a couple of years ago. Whereas it's like I see why it's right, but at the same time, it just looks wrong. But again, I'm happy for Lilo to get a thing. I thought celebrations around Halahola's 100th game for Cardiff as well. I thought that was done very well. So I'm trying to boost a load of positives up, and then we'll go into some of the issues later. But
yeah, those 2, it was brilliant, and I think Matt Sherritt came out post game and spoke about how Lilo seemed like he was back to close to his best, which is astonishing. At 30, he's only 36. I keep on aging him about a few 4 or 5 years and say he's about 42, but yeah, he is only 36. In terms of Cardiff players, that's a spring chicken. How far Felicia we were looking on, and but I think he's superb on the weekend. Halahola likewise. He had his odd moment. Obviously, you mentioned that triple step, which was beautiful to watch. I was watching that on replay in the trucks, back and forwards constantly. That was lovely to see. Also instrumental in the yellow card that was issued to the Bulls, that obviously had quite a big influence in the next 10 minutes as well. So, they were a huge positive in that game. But there were a couple of other things. I thought Jacob Beetham played well, considering he's not played much. and coming back into a side. And Harry Millard, we had a discussion about
Mm.
whether or not he's a wing or not. He was superb on the wing on the
I,
weekend.
I thought both him and Grady had them really moments.
Yeah.
I thought Grady, I didn't realize Grady was that good under the high ball.
Mm.
Like I thought he was really good, like as a sort of aerially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, we were discussing the pod a couple of episodes ago. Like, do you risk bringing Beetham in when Winnett's playing so well? And now you're like, oh, hang on, this is going to be a hell of a battle. I'm looking forward to watching this over the season now, seeing who wins, who gets in and wins, because they are, because you were like, oh well, he's not played in a while. Is he going to be like? No, brilliant. I thought it was excellent. I thought you saw his physicality helped as well.
Mm.
He was almost playing like a centre at times. So, actually against that big balls team was quite helpful. I thought the pack for the most part did right. I thought Littrick had another solid outing.
Yeah.
The scrum started to buckle after about 45 minutes, but I mean, Hilker Lowe is an amazing prop. Like he just is. Like, you're gonna go props, and like the rest of them aren't. And both their hookers. Speaking of hookers, I thought both of ours, so Evan Daniel and Ethan Lloyd, I thought they had really good showings considering like one's first start and the other one's first game. No, all right, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect in the line out and things, but I thought as far as the first couple of games, that's not bad.
I'm going to disagree with you there, but because I did think Evan Daniel played well. I was surprised he was taken off as soon as he was, if I'm honest.
Mm.
I think he was taken off before 50 or just on 50.
I can double check that now, thanks to CRFC fans stats pages.
Yeah,
Plug them because I do quite like him. Yeah, so he was taken off on the 50th minute. So that was him, Corey Domachowski, and Teddy Williams all taken off. So I think it was just a injection of pace type thing.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised at that. I thought Teddy was playing a good game and has had a good start to the season.
I was surprised
well.
because I feel like Teddy's the sort of if I was going to take either the second rows off, it probably would have been Thornton. Not necessarily because he was playing bad, but because I feel like keeping Teddy there gives you that extra sort of aggression. I said,
yeah.
For me, he's probably the closest we've had to a Bradley Davis in a while, in terms of quite an abrasive second row.
I mean, this is no disrespect to Bradley. Sorry, I mean, this is no disrespect to Bradley, but he's a more skillful Bradley Davis as well.
Oh, he's more skillful. I'm purely, it's this one aspect of something I think Cardiff have missed is we missed our homegrown aggressive bastard second row, and I think Teddy Williams has got that ability plus all the skill side, which is kind of what people were hoping for years with Seb Davis. But I think we've just got to accept he is a wonderful, athletic, skillful lock, but he's not necessarily the hard nosed edge we want him to be.
Yeah,
that is perfectly fine as long as you've got like a Teddy Williams and you've got Tamani there.
I thought Teddy was really good. I thought Domachowski was really good. I was surprised. I don't know if we're going to talk about subs throughout this. I think because the subs did have a huge impact, or in some cases lack of impact on the game. And I was surprised those three players were taken off. Ethan Lloyd, his first line out, there was that whole kerfuffle around him shifting constantly to try and get on the Cardiff side. Balls shifting up as well at the same time. And then he eventually threw it, and it was about 2 yards squint. Let's be honest about it, that line out. He just lost all faith in his own throwing ability. He is a converted back rower. He will take time. We've seen with Derry Lake, he's his throwing is still a work in progress, and he's a converted back rower as well. Behind the scenes, people really rate Ethan Lloyd. I think he's got a lot to give. I've spoken to Griff Rees about him, and he's talking about how talented he is. So I'm excited to see where he grows. I think it would have been a lesson learned sort of thing. The Bulls immediately put pressure on him on the line, put a front jumper in and said, right, you're nervous, we're going to take advantage of that. And I think so far this season, the use of subs has been a talking point more than I would expect it to. Especially when you talk about thinner squads, etc., etc. We've spoken about it a number of times, not using subs, and it's made sense. And this time, I feel like certain subs were brought in too early, or just But then it's a Harry hindsight situation, isn't it? If
Yeah,
those subs come on, Seb Davis comes on, scores 2 tries, kicks a drop goal or whatever, something Seb Davis can do,
yeah.
then we're talking about the genius that is Matt Sherratt. But in this instance, it didn't quite work out, and perhaps it wasn't the right time to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I see they'll have all their laptops and stuff, and they'll be looking at effort and are they carrying as effectively they hit rucks? I mean, without that sort of data or how they qualify it, we don't know. I thought around the park, I thought Evan Lloyd was quite good. I said that I did want to qualify it. I thought he did well for a debut. It would have been nice if he had a better line out, but let's be fair. I mean, if you're grading on the curve of Cardiff hookers, one squint throw isn't too bad. I mean, according to stats, we only lost the one. That was the only lineup we lost, so that's good. And we did steal one, which was quite cool. That's something you don't see often from a Cardiff pack.
What? There's good line-out jumpers there now. Alex Mann is a tertiary line-out option, or well, whatever quad option is. If you add Tamani or Seb at 8, or even Falcao when he's back at 8, there's good line-out jumpers there and good options. I think that's an area that could be a real strength this season.
I think the thing that frustrated me is one of our biggest strengths towards the end of last season and the start of this season has been our maul, and we only actually went to the maul once. I know you had this big balls pack, and they were gonna, there's going to be issues, but we didn't really even try him in it, even if it's just bringing in some of the balls players just to make some more space. If you give Halaholo and Lilo that little bit of, that one less person in the defensive line, they're going to take advantage. I thought the handling errors, I think, were the thing probably my biggest negative. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the terrain. I don't know if it was a bit greasy or anything out there. Don't know if you in the truck would have been able to give us some insight on that. But it just seemed like too many. I don't know if it was because the passes were bad because they'd had some croissants before, or I mean, I thought it looked to me, just thinking about it, players were just that half a yard, not too far forward or too far back. It was still not quite syncing up.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things. The conditions weren't perfect. It was cold, it was murky, but they were good enough that players of that standard should be able to catch those balls. I think Tamani dropped a couple where he'd overran it, a couple where the ball just wasn't where he was expecting it, or if he was expecting it, full stop. And there are a couple of others. It was frustrating to watch. And it was a theme of the weekend, but that particularly, there was a game to be won there, and I feel Cardiff's errors stopped that realistically ever being, until the last minute or so, being a possibility.
Yeah, I mean the big one that killed, like obviously going with the handling errors, was that ball which got passed out. I think it was between Lilo and Halaholo, and they couldn't, it wasn't passed in such a way that they knew who was getting that ball. And in the end, de Klerk got the ball and ran in from 65 meters. It was, and you just say that, and you just like, that almost feels like a 14, at least a 10-point turnaround, because you feel like we could have pressured for at least a penalty there. And
yeah,
it was nice seeing us break up, actually in our own 22, breaking wide. And we got a lot of change up the right hand side. One led to a yellow card, another one led to a penalty. I know some people were complaining that pullback. What why is the deliberate knock on a yellow card, not the other? And I don't know. For me, I think like the yellow card, the deliberate knock on seemed more obvious line break than pulling back, because it looked like the plate Lilo got pulled back before. I think it was Millard, wasn't it, who was looking to pass. So that might have been, well, no, you've committed a penalty because you've pulled him back. But
I think that one is more likely to be a yellow card. We spoke about it off pod about the Dragon situation with Matt Screech. Similar for me. I think that one, the pullback, is a yellow card if the previous yellow card hasn't already been given.
Yeah.
They're both cynical. I think they're both yellow cards personally. the one thing that hampers it a little bit, if I'm honest, is Lilo slightly makes a meal of it rather than just getting on with it and trying to track on. And if I'm completely frank, I think whether subliminally or not, the referee has realised that it's a 36-year-old centre running in and not a Damian Penno or a Will Jordan. If that's the case, I think he gives a yellow card because of who's on the inside and the pace of that player, which I think is wrong.
I feel like if that was Mason Grady on the inside, you'd be like, but I mean, Lilo did show how much pace he had to get break out there.
It's not.
I agree. I agree. I think that played a part. Definitely. I mean, you get it with props and being penalised in the scrum as well, where like a ref just has an idea in their head whether it's reality or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's why Cardiff lost the game. I'm not saying that at all. I just, for me, they're both yellow card. They're both cynical infringements that have tried to illegally hamper an offensive attack where a line break opportunity is there. Therefore, I think they both should be yellow cards. That's my 2 pence on it. We might as well move on. That's just
Yeah, I think I said I don't particularly like going with referee check because I actually thought, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Sam Grove White and his interpretations. I thought he did. I don't think he necessarily got any decisions wrong. I mean, we've spoke about 2 contentious ones either way, and I probably wouldn't have complained or been happy either way. But I mean, my issues with Sam Grove White is I feel like he's a referee who's not the way he looks at breakdowns isn't necessarily the way Cardiff want. So when Cardiff were winning turnovers cleanly, he started to give us more change when we turned over. When we were just trying to get the turnover for a penalty, he seemed to be a little bit more. I mean, that Mason Grady penalty, I personally think he went straight for the ball. I don't know if that was a call from the touch judge. But I mean, look, that was his call. I'm not saying we lost the game because of that.
I'm going to wholeheartedly agree with that summation without going more into it. I think that was an interesting call. But look, you speak about mistakes and handling errors. The kindness to be offload off the floor, which then goes to the winger to sorry, what was the winger's name to score into the posts? It wasn't Creel, wasn't it?
You had de Klerk and Papier, the scrum half.
De Klerk, thank you.
De Klerk was the one where it's just sort of bounced in midfield.
Yeah, where it seems like tends to be just trying to flick it up, and if he gets that pass to whoever's running through, I think it might be Lilo. Lilo's in. There is an open gap there to go through, but unfortunately the ball goes to Klerk. De Klerk goes under the sticks, and as we mentioned, that's like a 14-point turnaround. One thing to mention as well, we're critical of Cardiff and things like that, but that first try for Papier is poetry in motion from the Bulls. The offload out the back of the in out. The out in on Harry Millard to get then the opportunity to suck into defenders.
It's that first pass wide, and again that comes from a mistake of a loose kick. But that first pass, what was it, from 15 to 15?
Yeah, but then off.
Yeah, it was a glorious. Like when I'm watching next weekend's Viaplay, I fully expect that to be up on one of the tries of the round. Normally, because it was so good.
Yeah,
Betting it was against us, but.
So good, the out to in, offload out the back door, over the shoulder, then the chip over the top. Okay, I think Creel's doing it for himself, but it works out perfectly for Papier, who scores. It's absolutely brilliant play, and we're not here to praise the opposition, but at the same time, when it's worthy and worth doing, because if you're going to talk about the moment of quality in that match, I think that's where it was. Lilo's insight and cleverness to go for that option. There was a couple of brilliant runs from Harry Millard as well, but that moment was so brilliant. I thought.
I thought the Grady. I thought the build up and everything involved in the Grady try as well. But going back to a Cardiff sense, that was when you saw the defense clicking and passes going to hand. And we were pulling them out. We pulled them out left, and we pulled them out right. And then Grady had the space. Then in the left-hand corner, it was, you could see what Sherratt's trying to. We mentioned last week about Cardiff seeming to be more of a 10-man rugby team. Here, it was more. This is what we expect. This is what from Cardiff. This is what we expect from a jockey coach team. So that was quite pleasing. And he did say in his post-match that he felt that in the Scarlets game we maybe played within ourselves and not expressed. So he said, "Look, you're going to have more handling errors with this game, but hopefully we'll get a bit better." So, yeah, overall there's a lot of positives. I think for me the problem is it's yet another game. Like, you wouldn't have to stretch yourself too far to say we should be 4 from 4. Like, you could see 4 from 4 for Cardiff, and these are, this is probably once again we've probably got an easier front loading of our games. All right, but I say ball because I'd say ball's probably the most difficult that we're playing. Like, for me, I feel like derby games should be toss of a coin because all the regions are in a similar situation. Benetton, that was a game we should have won. Like, we should have put far more points on them in the first half. This game again, on the back half, we're hosting Leinster and Connacht, and we're going away to Munster and Ulster. They're going to be hard games. We're going away to Glasgow. We don't do well up there. It's, I do feel like we should have got more out of this first block, but
I think there's a couple
can't change it.
I think both eastern regions will feel the same. I think Dragons, what was it, 4 of their first 5 at home. They've had 3 of them so far. They've got Ospreys next week. Bar the Munster game, they could have won 2 of those games. They were unlikely to beat Leinster at home, but they should have beaten Edinburgh. They should have beaten. No, they could have beaten Cardiff had they had that win to bounce off in the first instance. And Cardiff similarly should have beaten Benetton, then beat Dragons. Then there's the Scarlets game. Then there's this game. It's. I think if you're a Scarlets fan, well, up until this weekend, you probably thought, "Oh, we won the games that we could have won." If you're an Ospreys fan, you're thinking the Connacht second half was really good. First half terrible. Then you've got a couple of good performances after the back. It's a bit of woulda, shoulda, coulda situation again, and there seems to be a running theme a little bit with the regions, and I don't know if that's partly all the regions have lost a lot of experience, and maybe that has had an impact because they always, if you listen to any top level coach, any top level player, they will talk about experience wins you games or experience wins you championships, and that has, I think, in some instances been noticeable. Knowing what to do at the right moment, you get players coming in having a rush of blood, whether that be with a red card, for instance, in week 1, whether that be with coming on a weekend in your first performance, trying to have a huge influence in the game, like Adil Robson was trying to do, having not played in 3 weeks, trying to have a huge impact, and in my opinion, trying to do too much. All these things, it's difficult, isn't it? I think, I'm trying to find the words to voice it without sounding too frustrated, but it might be the situation that we're in for a couple of seasons. Sorry, I've caught you just as you're coughing, haven't I?
Yeah. I mean, I probably end up referring back to this because it was one of Sherratt's first interviews since he got announced as head coach or interim head coach, whatever it is. I think it's just head coach, isn't it? He said this season is effectively a write-off. He didn't say that in those words, but he basically said this is going to be a hard season where I'm going to be we're going to be looking at developing players. We're probably going to lose a couple more at the end of the season, so we want to work out where do we need to pull from the academy. Where are we going to find game times for these players? Who are we making sure definitely we've got signed on? I said it on the rap pod. Again, mention it because it's still fresh in my head. like I feel like the regions probably would have coped better with the WRU's cut in budget had it been announced at the start of last season, not right towards the end, because they would have had the time to make plans and actually say, right, these are my priorities.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully my child isn't coming through on the mic there. Uh, bless her. She had one very good night's sleep, so therefore she now needs 3 nights of utterly terrible. Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's just really frustrating because you can see we're almost there, but not quite. And I feel like you look at some of these games and you're like, but if it was this team we were playing against, playing like that, we're not going to do it. Even if we cut out some of the mistakes, I don't know if we beat them. I think trying too hard is a different thing. I mean, one fun thing, looking at the thing, and it tells you total game time in minutes based on like competitive rugby, and we have almost double the balls. The problem is we've got lots of experience in so it says here we've got 62,000 odd competitive minutes. 11,000 of those are Ray.
Yeah.
So he's a sixth of our experience. And then, like Thomas is huge, Rory Thornton, Ellis Jenkins, Seb, big names. But then you've got people like Jacob Beetham has played 81 minutes of competitive rugby. Reece Littrick has played 80 because he's come off the bench when he started last week and came off the bench the week before. Evan Daniels only, and it's a lot. It feels a little bit more spread out. I mean, Aka van der Merwe, they've put us 108 minutes, which I'm guessing is purely in the balls, experience in the balls, because he definitely played a lot more than that for Sale. Wilco Lowe as well. Again, a big reason why we started to lose our slip on that game was the scrum. And, Wilco
Yeah.
Lowe, big shout out, 80 minutes for a tight head prop is huge. Like, it is a huge effort. And he was, and it's not like he was just shoring up scrums. He was hitting rucks and making tackles and carrying. He did very well. I'm a big fan of it. I did call a couple of people out on it for it, but saying, well, Reece when they were saying about Reece Littrick getting a yellow card at Kenzie Matthias, saying, yeah, but who's more likely to be causing a problem? The third choice prop at Harlequins who can't get in the main team, or Wales International, and you're like, Wilco Lowe and Simon Kerrod are two really good tight end props. Wilco Lowe just showed the reason why Littrick couldn't get into that Quins team. Because if you've got Wilco Lowe for the whole season, you're going to pick him. Again, so don't want to be praising the opposition all the time, but I thought he was very good.
He was, yes, and did his bread and butter, which is something South African props seem to. I'm a huge Malherbe fan. I think he's a brilliant tight end. And they're not expected to do all this flash and dab stuff. They're just told, right, scrums. That's it. That's all you
Push
do.
hard, hit rucks. That's all we want you to do.
I am simplifying it. Obviously, they do hit rucks.
Yeah.
They do do other stuff as well. But
yeah. But it's their job is very much this gritty unseen work. We don't need you in the 15-meter channels doing wide passes. We don't need you making 30-yard carries. We want you get the basics done. We've got players who can do that.
And it was Tyke Burnham obviously changed the game a little bit. That was how it used to be in the sort of the Adam Jones era. But when he came along, everyone sort of thought, oh no, we need our tight heads to be improving more. And it's quite nice to see tight heads who just do tight head stuff. I'm a little bit on the Carey side of things. Carey's coming on. I'd like to see him having a little bit more impact than he did scrum wise. In terms of positive impact, it was quite negative after that. And you mentioned Wilco Lowe playing a full 80. Wilco Lowe is a phenomenal scrummager. I'm not belittling that at all, but he must be tiring at some point during that 80 minutes. And that's when you would think that the fresh legs could have an impact. I do think the bench did, Carey one brilliant bust through midfield. Obviously, the offload at the back door nearly created a try. But there has to be, you do have to get your bread and butter done. And that's something that has been turning gradually with Carey. He has been improving in that aspect, and I think
Yeah,
it still, but it still needs to improve again. And I don't think, I think the weekend would have been a learning curve for him. There are plenty of props that Wilco Low will make a mockery of in the scrum. There are plenty, and I'm not saying that it's an easy job, but there's still space for him to grow still, and hopefully he does that, because otherwise he's a very talented rugby player and can still grow. The other things, yeah, the whole game as a whole, where do you think it stands with Cardiff fans? We sort of talked about it going through it, but are you looking at that thinking missed opportunity then, especially at the end of the game where there might actually be a realistic opportunity to win that?
yeah. I mean, I think just watching the Bulls play throughout the game, it looked. I know they've got one more week left, and I don't want to accuse them of not wanting to play or anything like that. I'm sure they did, but there was just a feel about that Bulls team that they were already on the plane home back to South Africa,
Mm.
and it was a case of it was almost like they were just a bit fed up of being away from home, and they're only human. That's perfectly acceptable. It. I mean, some people pointed out that it's not necessarily their strongest, but it's still. I mean, Bulls don't have a weak side. I think they are in terms of like full squad, they are up there in terms of total squad strength. And you
Yeah.
looked at it, and I feel like we caused them a lot more problems than they caused us. I feel, other than at scrum, and I think their driving maul got. Although even then, the driving maul we managed to manage to problem solve and get away to get hands in on that. It was again, this thing, I was just so frustrated because it's yet another game where we've lost by a handful of points. I mean, my one positive is the one thing I did say is I wanted us to be picking up losing bonus points if we're not winning.
Yeah.
So we've lost 3 games, but we've picked up 3 bonus points, and because of that, we're ahead of the Scarlets.
On
Which
that,
all right, I've got higher aspirations than being ahead of the Scarlets, but the point is we've both won one game. We've managed to get those losing bonus points. I'd
yeah,
like
I
to
was just
score a
going
few
to,
more tries as well,
yeah.
ideally,
Uh,
but
yeah, I was just going to mention, what was your score prediction again? Because didn't you say Bulls by 15 or something like that?
I
I've
said
got,
Bulls by 15. So for me, actually, this was huge.
yeah,
Like it's a weird one. Like they bettered my expectations, but it's one of those things of you come up these predictions Monday night, then the teams get announced, and then you think, oh, all right, maybe change that. But ultimately, it's on the pitch, and looking on that pitch, I felt Cardiff were playing above themselves, and I felt Bulls were playing a bit beneath themselves.
yeah. I was
And
trying to remember.
they're looking like if a few more of passes went to hand, if that, you don't get that Declerc try, which basically just picks up a free ball, then all of a sudden you're looking at much closer, healthier scoreline. Then maybe we're not giving away those rush penalties.
Yeah,
Maybe we're not forcing it, which allows that break, which caused the Grady penalty, whether you agree with it or not, which puts them instead of 3 points in the lead, 6 points in the lead. And then all of a
mm.
sudden, then it's do or die. We have to get a converted try when it was. Well, whilst we were down and then we were only 3 points ahead, we could have knocked a penalty over and then tried to get back up because a draw is still good in this league. You know,
Yeah,
getting a couple of draws will that's two table points. That'll get you. That's going to help push you up. Certainly more than a losing bonus point will.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that was more of my issue is like I like the fact we're playing expansive, but at times it felt like we were chasing a game which we didn't need to chase. We were playing like we were much further behind than we were.
Mhm.
It's the forced passes like pass it. It was up. Those two breaks down the right wing I mentioned, where we got 2 penalties and a yellow card out of. That was on because of how much the balls were flooding in for those kickoffs to try and pin us back, and we were able to get it out quickly. But when you're like there and you're like, right, let's get this ball away quickly, and no one's set, or maybe you just need a couple more seconds to get into shape. That's where I think we let ourselves down.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Um, and part of that does come down to experience in terms of halfbacks and the lack of time they've had in the league, I think, and particularly the tens. Well, obviously the tens, because Thomas was playing 9, but Tynus is still on this learning curve. You know, you've got good moments, you've got poor moments, and it's still this inconsistent wave that you see throughout a game for Tynus. Ardwell, obviously, I spoke about that. You know, he was trying to do too much. He was trying to do, you know, he was trying to score, get a 50. No, about 2 kicks. He tried to get a 50-22 where they were doable kicks, but maybe just poorly executed and didn't actually have to be attempted at that time.
And yes, because they were the ones that went out on the full, weren't they? And it was a bit. They had a couple of kicks out on the full, and it was.
Yeah, there was one out on the full. There was one that was just landed harmlessly around the 10-meter line. So it's as well. His kicking out of hand wasn't the best that day. I think that's fair to say. I think he didn't have his best showing, and I'm a big fan of him. I've been really excited to see him this year. But clearly has some work to do. The other thing to mention that we haven't mentioned, we've been full of praise of the Bulls, is a certain Welsh qualified number 24, Cameron Hannigan, because
yes, as I said, I was. Yeah, he's living up to the hype. I mean, every game I've seen him in, like, and the Bulls aren't exactly short on it, because you've got Elric Lowe as well, who's a decent midfielder. Although I think they've moved him more to making him more of a blindside, or, you know, their number 7 to basically to accommodate Heineken. Got Ninzad Carr there as well. You know, former Wasp man. It's, you know, that's a hell of a back row to get to stand out in, and he is doing it. And when we're talking about talking about like Wales, we're not blessed with like fantastic ball carriers. He looks tidy. You know, the question is who's going to end up who is Gatland going to tell to sign him? You never know. Hopefully, being from South Africa, you might be able to get him a bit cheaper than you necessarily would coming from France, because their salaries are a fair bit lower due to the living standard.
It's you know, looking at it from the outside, it's obvious in my opinion, it's obvious which club should be going out for him. You know, Scarlett's been crying out for a number 8 since Calamafoni left. If I was down there, I'd be screaming out for it. But you know, Cardiff, obviously, depending on what happens with Fanatel, would be lovely to have him there. But while there's the likes of Seb being trialled there, and obviously Tamani and Mackenzie Martin coming through.
Yeah, Big Mac. Exactly. You know, James Botham. I actually quite rate him as an 8.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that like desperate to get him, but I'd love to see him in a Wales shirt in the future, because he looks a talented player. A couple of runs that he did on the weekend were special. Footwork, pace, power, just general, just not lung busting runs, just these impact runs, the sort of, you know, Rio Dyer, you know, the way Rio Dyer runs, full of like pace and intent and trying to bust a line, not necessarily power, but Hounakin's got that extra power outage as well. It's just, I like
it's the dynamism, I guess. The dynamism, I'm guessing. Yeah. It's, you know, there's a real rush of it. As I said, I thought it was brilliant. I think we've basically covered all that game. I mean, it was quite low scoring, but actually I thought, thinking back and looking back, I hated it as a Cardiff fan. Going back to catch myself watching it back, and just as someone who likes rugby, it was a really good game for the score. The handling errors were annoying, but there was some very, you know, I said for that first sort of 45 minutes, I thought the scrummaging was really good from both sides.
Yeah. I think it was a good game. It was a good game.
I enjoyed it.
And Cardiff didn't look outclassed. That's the main thing. If you compare that to Scarlett, I know Scarlett playing out in South Africa versus playing at home against South African side, it's chalk and cheese. But they are the same team that you're playing against. And if you compare that nature, Scarlett's playing out in in the Bulls being outclassed versus Cardiff weren't outclassed on the weekend. I think that's an important thing to note, and long may it continue. Also, I did want to mention, I can't remember what my prediction was, but I think I did say Bulls by 5 or 6. But I can't remember which I said.
You said you said we'd get a losing bonus point. I don't know if you nailed down an exact score. I probably should start writing it down, but we probably won't. But yeah,
I
think
to
listen
back. Yeah, I meant to listen back, but I suppose that leads
you've earned the smugness there. You've earned that one.
I was going to use that as a segue into this week then, and the predictions for this weekend, because normally you'd say Zebre, that's a winnable game. They can't win a game, but 12-10 against the Sharks.
This is the thing, and Zebre are really good. And I think this is their first game of the 4 where they didn't score 4 tries.
Yeah.
They're decent, but they've got some decent players in there, and a bloke called Tiff. I've been unfair to Tiff Eden. I can't believe that anyone is actually called Tiff. It just makes me chuckle every time I see it. Same as the was it Charlie Titcombe at the Scarlets? I'm that immature. It makes me chuckle every time I see or hear it. Zebre. I think Zebre might sneak it because I think they're going to be very, they've gotten that monkey off their back now, not winning forever. I think it's going to be quite close. Maybe, hopefully, high scoring. I'd quite like to see us get 2 losing bonus points if we do lose. Ideally, a win. But I think it's going to be one of those games that comes down to the wire, and I think one team might score 1 or 2, and then the other team hits straight back. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a bit messy, to put it politely, but I'm hoping Cardiff prove me wrong. They've proved me wrong most weeks so far.
I think it could be a good watch. I'm in some ways I agree there could be a lot of errors and a lot of tries scored off errors, and I think that's going to be a big part is who takes the opportunities, who takes their chances, because there are going to be opportunities on the weekend. I still think Cardiff should be too strong for Zebre, and perhaps that's a little bit of previous season syndrome. Not that that's really a thing, but if you know what I mean, as in harking back to the history and the it's going down to Zebre and don't lose at Zebre. That sort of thinking, but it's a really important game, I think, for both sides. Zebre really want to prove it's not a flash in the pan, because the Sharks are bad. Like, the Sharks are bad at the moment. They were terrible against Ospreys.
They're bottom of the URC,
and I don't mean to belittle Zebre's game. It was huge for them, and the scenes afterwards were brilliant to see. It's so good to see them winning a game and showing progress as they, finally getting the reward of that progress we've seen at the start of the season. The performance against Ulster, etc.
Yeah.
But the Sharks are a bad side, so it's about Zebre now backing up and showing that they can perform against a side that are a little bit more cohesive in Cardiff. I think that's fair to say. And for Cardiff, it's a little bit like getting over the line. I don't care how a win is procured, just so long as it is, because we've mentioned the frustrations of the last few weeks and Benetton before that. It's about just crossing the line. If that's a 1 try 16-9 like it was at Rodney Parade, take it, because
I'd take a 3-0. I would take a drop. Thomas Williams deciding that he does want to play 10, doing a drop goal for a laugh at the start of the game, and then no other points being scored. That for me would be great, because then it sets us up. At least gives us some confidence ready to have Stormers and Scarlets at home before going into Europe, which I don't know about you. For me, Europe, I think, is just going to be a banter session. Just go in, 4 games, just have a laugh. Don't worry about it.
I would like it to
focus on the league.
I'd like it to be marketed similar way to the Toulouse and Harlequins games were.
Yeah,
That's one thing I would say. Because one of the things noticed
that's
at
what I'm
the
saying.
weekend.
Banter, a bit of laugh. Just go full banter, and I think it'll get people in.
Yeah, just get the support behind the side because this is a team that is growing and is not going to be the finished article this season, as we've seen. Well, so far, I was going to say week in week out, but last season so far. But I did want to bring up one thing that I mentioned last week. Would you, in terms of changes, is this the week that you change and give Ben Thomas a chance at 10 because of how well Halaholo and Lilo went in the centres? Because I'd like to see Ben Thomas starting, but I don't see who you drop from the other two.
This is the thing. If I'm going to try Ben Thomas at 10, and do you know what? This is a game where I think actually Ben Thomas could worth, because I don't know if it's, or I don't know if they want to try and get Alwell Robson playing properly, but I'd be tempted to stick with De Beer, because I feel like every minute he's had with in that team next to Thomas and Willis, he's starting to click more, and he's starting to get how the other players are. And yes, he had a few offers, but we saw the attacking game side of Tinius De Beer come out last week. Whereas mostly we've been praising his kicking game, the kicking, because that's something he can control. Basically, as long as he gets the ball off the 9, he can kick. That doesn't necessarily rely around on the wingers to an extent, because you want the chase. I mean, that might be part of the reason why we had to go more expansive, is because we didn't have many of the wingers. Like, if you don't have a Cabango or a Josh Adams or a Summerhill, someone with that just lightning pace to get down the field, kicking loose is, as we saw with the Papia try, kicking loose leaves you in a world of shit if you can't get a chase.
Yeah.
I would like to see. I mean, I'd quite like to see him, but if for me, if Ben Thomas is going to have a run at 10, I'd be bringing him off the bench. Personally, I think maybe if we get to a point and there's nothing to, when we get. I hate the thought of getting to the end of the season and having nothing to play for, but maybe that's when you start doing those. Or maybe the argument is no, chuck him in a big game, because if he is in match long-term plans at 10, he's got to show it in the big games. It's a really wish. I know I've basically firmly wedged that fence at me derriere there, but I'm inclined to go same again.
Okay.
I don't really see too much. I mean, maybe start Seb over Rory again. No offense to Rory, but it'd just be not. I'd like to see Teddy and Seb build on that relationship a bit more. I think the back rows, I'm really, really liking how that back row. I think Jenkins, Ellis, and Tamani is really nice. There's a really nice balance to it.
I'd be stunned if Thomas Young doesn't start this week, just because that's how it happened. The sort of rotation of that 7 seems to be.
I mean, I'll be honest. For me, it's almost horses for courses for me with Ellis and Tom and Thomas. But I like but my point is, I like the makeup. I like having an outlet 7, and then Tamani at 8. I'm really liking. I think he's getting better. I think he's got a little bit more work that needs to be done on at the base of the scrum, which, to be fair, that's just a symptom of Cardiff not having necessarily as dominant a scrum. I think Alex Mann is just pretty good. I don't know if Shane Lewis Hughes is a little bit. I mean, we said last week he's a bit croc, so I don't know if he'd be close to being fit now. Maybe not, because I think we said a few weeks.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it's this week. I think it might be next week, but hopefully.
But yeah,
hopefully,
as I said, I don't see anyone coming in. I said Ben Thomas would be great. I don't know if I'd be very tempted to start. I'd quite like to see Beetham have another go at 15 as well. I thought he did really well on the weekend.
I think I'd start Winnett again, but that's I don't know. I do like Winnett, and I think this, as I mentioned, I think it could be a game where there's quite a few tries, and that suits win it perhaps a little bit, a bit more of an open game, a chance to use his footwork, as
I
opposed
think
to
either way, they're both going to be involved because we just don't have outside backs.
yeah. Unless
Unless
he
you're using Ben Thomas as 10, 12, and 15 cover.
yeah, let's not see that again because as great a player as Ben Thomas is, he's not 15 as I've said before. But the other thing is the Hayward Webb option. Obviously, he's had a week now
Yeah.
getting to grips with things. Had a chat with him after the game. Nothing major, obviously, but just about him settling in, and he seems to be enjoying his time down here, and is excited to get the opportunity. So,
I suppose wing is an easier position. If there is an easy position to slot into a side, I suppose wing is one of the easier ones.
yeah, you're probably angering the whole winger fraternity there, but yeah, I'd hasten to agree because I suppose defensively is the big work on, but in terms of your basics, your run, your kick chase, they don't really change. It's just you're still kick chasing.
Defensively, I mean, most teams operate a back three pendulum. You get the odd one or two still has a 15-10 drop back for the backfield cover.
Yeah.
But particularly with the sort of stuff, we have a bit more of an aggressive defense. We like to make, we have the blind and open side wingers dropping back and switching across because it just makes life easier. And then Thomas is almost as an extra center. So I feel like it probably slots in a bit easier because we're not always bringing our wingers into the midfield to do things. We tend to have them out wide. Tend to keep more. Yeah. I know Josh Adams does occasionally come in, but that's I think a very unique thing for Josh Adams, because he is almost an underweight back rower at times. The way he can pick and go from the base.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think So put a number on. I said I don't know. I'm just being incredibly pessimistic. So hopefully you can be optimistic. So I'm going Zebre by 2.
I'll go Cardiff by. Ooh. I've got a weird 4 or 7 in my head. I don't know why that is. I'm either thinking 25-32 or 32-36. I'll go with the latter. I'll go with the former, 25-32. Exciting, but not too ridiculous. I think.
Cardiff by 7, then, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's still one of those games that Cardiff can win, and perhaps I don't want to say a step too far for Zebre, but perhaps one that still Zebre can't get over the line in. And I'd like to see them get a few wins this season, and I'm really happy they have got one already. But by the by, how gutted are you that we haven't played? We haven't seen Sharks down at Cardiff Palms Park yet, because that Sharks side, once all the internationals back, is going to be a completely different prospect, isn't it?
And we're going to be playing them in Durban.
Yes, exactly.
Hope it rains.
Yeah. But yeah, well, best to that game, because that's going to be interesting with how the internationals coming back, and that side should be strengthened by that point. I managed to make a positive into a negative, didn't I? How did I manage that? I'm going to win on the weekend. There we go. We'll finish on that, really.
Yeah, this is a problem. We've got two sort of negative voices. We need to find like a cheery, happy. So if you want to join, if anyone wants to have a crack at the pod and be Mr. Positive, more welcome. Unfortunately, most Cardiff fans I know are as jaded as I. So we're just going to go a bit wider into sort of the Cardiff's regional pathway responsibilities. Talk a bit of Premiership. So unfortunately, the Rags also lost on Saturday down at Cap, so they went down 26-15 to our black and amber rivals Newport. So at least the Newport-based team can beat a blue and black team.
Not needed.
I aimed at one particular individual, and he loves me really. So Merthyr beat Aberavon 49-35. and Pontypridd beat Swansea 35-18. So that leaves the Premiership table in terms of those three teams. We had an argument we had a discussion off pod. Obviously, as far as we're aware, they're the three Cardiff-based regions. Anyone listening, if you want us to go a bit deeper and cover other games in the pods, we can do. As I said, I've sort of run out of time to watch just the URC games and the old Premiership games. Keep an eye on some TAFs abroad, but we're more than happy to. So looking at the table, so we've got Merthyr in fifth. So they've got 2 games in hand of top Llandovery and are 19 points behind. Then you got the Rags in 7th and Pontyr in 9th. And they've both got a game in hand as well. So I was yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Rags game at all or any of the Premiership.
I didn't see that game, obviously. I saw the Neath Bridgend game on the weekend, and I have been keeping track. Ponty, it's been a bit of a difficult season for them. They've lost a couple of games that in previous seasons they probably wouldn't have. They lost tightly to Pontypool. They lost a couple of other games. Cardiff, I think it was always expected this season was going to be a bit of a rebuild. Last season, obviously, successful and nearly successful in many ways, and they've lost a lot of players, Cardiff, whether that be your Alex Manns and Evan Daniels to the regional side, whether that be other players to the English Championship. So it's going to be a difficult season, and I'm not too surprised to see them outside the top sort of 5 places. Merthyr are obviously still there, still in with a good shout of reaching the playoffs. The surprise has been Pontypool. How well they've settled into that league, having been promoted, is brilliant, and the support they had the other week against Zebre Vale was superb. It was great to see.
Yeah, just one note on Pooler. Like, it's nice for them to get some vindication after. Frankly, I've always thought it was a bit shitty how poorly they've been treated and how often they were refused entry into the Premiership for technicalities or deciding to ring fence. And now they've come in and they've shown that they're really good. Unfortunately for Neath, not having the same success.
Neath just need to get over the line. They need that win. Like, they are, and I mean this. I don't mean this as derogatory as it might sound, but they are the Zebre version that they just need to get over the line. If they get over the line, they might win a couple on the bounce, because they have been close there or thereabouts. They were there or thereabouts against Bridgend on the weekend. On Thursday night, and Bridgend scored a brilliant breakaway try. He scored another nice try, but Neath were in that game, could have won it. But yeah, it's been tight, and I am excited for the back end of this Syndical Prem season, because I think any of those I'm going to say top 5 sides could win it. Going down to Merthyr, from Llandovery down to Merthyr, that includes Newport, Pontypool and Zebre Vale, and I wouldn't have thought Pontypool could have won it at the start of the season. But yeah, I think a bit too far for Aberystwyth, but maybe I'm wrong in that, and happy to be proved wrong.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I think we mentioned with the way the Rags are set up, they are, they as much as they are their own thing at times, they are a second team for a direct second team for Cardiff, for Cup, the pro side. So normally you'd see, like, I think we saw 2 academy players this time out and a couple of permit players, whereas normally you had a lot. You'd see quite a few more. I think they've been struggling at centre as well, so they had to rope in Jason Harries into the centres for a bit. I think that's just a knock-on effect we were always going to see. We saw it. Unfortunately, Llanelli got basically are playing at all this season. Although I feel like Scots tended to use Carmarthen, Quins and Llandovery more for their develop. I don't always see that many in Llanelli, but maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. Any other things you want to discuss before?
Trying to think. No, I don't think there is anything else this week. I was just wondering, to be honest, where this week has been so bleak in terms of four sides losing. If we're going to talk about that in terms of all the regions, what Cardiff, if Cardiff don't win, obviously Dragons have got Ospreys, but Scarlets are trying to Leinster. It's going to be another difficult weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I said this is a nice weekend because it's one where we're guaranteed to have a Welsh team win.
Yeah, this will be the week there's a draw, won't it?
Yeah, I was so tempted on that to put that in my prediction for when we do the rap predictions to put a draw, but something in my head just just says Ospreys win.
See,
Yeah,
I
looking
did
at
that.
Cardiff's game,
I did that.
looking at Cardiff's games. Yeah, I do think it's going to get. It does seem to get worse each, like particularly once we get past the Christmas break. There's some very hard fixtures. So is it? So also we have So our first fixture of the new year is Ospreys away, which will be which has been confirmed to be at the Brewery Field. For those interested in heading down, it should be a bit of a nicer commute. Bridgender's a marginally better place in the industrial estate that Swansea.com's based in. But yeah, so from there, then our next game is in February, and we are hosting Connacht. That could be a good one. I always say that although some people complain there's no rivalries, I feel like Connacht is a team that we could have a really good rivalry because those are always usually close, tense games with a bit of niggle. But then we've got said we're hosting Leinster at home in March. That's not good. I know a Jared penalty got us a win a couple of years ago. Then we're away to Glasgow. We don't travel to Glasgow very well. We've had some very horrid scorelines from there. And we've got we've got Ulster at home at some point as well. We're away to Munster. No, we're away to Ulster and Munster. Then to end the season, we've got our South Africa tour, which is those are going to be the weeks where we're going to be hoping for bonus points or this, that, and the other. And we're going to South Africa to play Lions and the Sharks. Yeah, it could be a very grim season from here on out for us.
If you want some more positive news,
if you want some more positive news,
I was just going to mention if you are looking for more rugby to watch, Aviva Premiership starts this weekend. The Alliance Premiership. I've said the Aviva Premiership. There we go.
The power.
The Alliance Premiership Women's Rugby. Obviously, many Welsh interests. Whether or not they're playing, I don't know after direct fee commitments. But Bristol Bears have got plenty of Welsh talent on offer. Saracens. Gloucester aren't playing this week because they've got the Worcester bye, but Sarries have got a couple as well. And then Sunday, the game that is being billed as the what do we call it? The Cardiff, the Taffs abroad, the Cardiff abroad wing battle between Faye Waboso and Lucy Samet, the double-barreled shoot off for want of a much better phrase. It could be one.
Because they both play on the right wing.
Yeah, but they build it as it, so I'm trying to build it out for them. I do know. Yeah, just something else to watch, isn't it? To see two young Cardiff-born talents going at it against in opposing sides. It could be quite interesting to see who comes out on top there.
And maybe, we might even get 12 minutes of Max Llewellyn off the bench at 13 when they get fed up with Chris Harris. It frustrates me. Like Gloucester all they talk about wanting to be a young, refreshing team, and then you look at the centres they start. But that's my own gripe. But I mean, I'm sure Max is loving the fact he's not getting anywhere near as bad as he would be playing for Cardiff, not playing anywhere near as many minutes. On probably a better whack as well.
Yeah, just it may not be. Hopefully, it doesn't impact him in terms of Wales opportunities because I do like the look of him at 12. Sure.
I had the one, I had this thought with the idea of Dylan Lewis being one of our top, still being up there with the tight heads, and saying, well, he probably not going to be starting much for Queens. And I remember Tom Francis very really started for Exeter, and he was still our top one because Gatlin sort of went, well, no, it's just the way Rob Baxter wants to use Thomas Francis off the bench, and I think he sort of went, I can get him up to international. And that's one thing with Gatland. He does believe in his own strength and conditioning teams. So
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
big
like
time.
it doesn't necessarily, like, if he sees the potential in someone, he will back them, and he won't necessarily do like the Pivac thing of just chop and change, and have have a tombola, stick to players even if you don't necessarily see why.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that'll help him out. I don't know. Hopefully, because like I say, he's a very talented player and deserves his chance, I think.
Yeah. So I feel like we've talked another meh. I feel like we're going to call it a meh result for Cardiff, because I can't say I was overwhelmingly happy or disappointed. So I'm going to
Yeah.
stick with meh. I'm going to go with meh. And so I think that leaves me to say thank you to my co-host Carwyn. Thank you to you lot, the listeners. If I'm told that there's some of you out there, please check us out on the new Twitter page. I had to go with doing a live tweeting of the Cardiff game. Let me know if you want that to continue. I might get, if Carwyn isn't working, maybe ask him to do it, as he'll have a little bit more experience and he'll be a little bit less sarcastic. Feel free to come and answer any questions. Sorry, we forgot to put out a thing asking for questions for tonight. We will try and do that more, but feel free to message the pod directly, and we'll pick that up. And yeah, if there are any segments, if you want if you think there are any guests you want to try and get on, we will try and get some on. But other than that, I just want to say thanks again for listening, and ta-ra.
Yeah.